What's going on? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to do a video talking about the UFC's biggest stars currently in the UFC organization, talk about why I think they're the biggest stars currently in the UFC, and talk about why I think that this list is a valid ranking for each of these fighters. If you enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like and subscribe. 99% of viewers who watch my videos are not subscribed, so if you want to enjoy the content and not miss a video, please go down and leave a like, subscribe, and while you're down there, turn on the post notifications as well, and let's jump into this UFC rankings video by ranking the biggest stars in the UFC currently. Okay, at number 10, I have Ilia Topuria, and Ilia Topuria has lived up to all the hype that he has brought around himself. You look at the Alexander Volkanovski fight where he said that he was going to knock out Alexander Volkanovski in the first round, and no one believed him. And what did he do? It wasn't the first round, but early on in that second round, he hit Alexander Volkanovski with an absolute clean, beautiful right overhand, which dropped Alexander Volkanovski out cold. Ilia Topuria is a fighter I think is 15-0 at this point, and he is currently the UFC featherweight champion, and he is an absolute massive draw in the UFC organization and one of, if not the most well-rounded fighters currently in the UFC. His pocket boxing is elite and probably the best in the UFC currently. He's got amazing jiu-jitsu and wrestling. And there's a lot of people who don't understand that he's got a chin too. You look at the Jai Herbert kick, where he got kicked so hard in the first round and came back and knocked Jai Herbert out cold. Ilia Topuria is such a massive star and such a massive draw. I can only imagine how big his next fight is going to be with Max Holloway, considering that Max Holloway may be coming a little bit later on this list. But Ilia Topuria is definitely top 10 biggest stars in the UFC currently. At number 9, we have your favorite fighter's favorite fighter, and I got Justin Gaethje at number 9. Justin Gaethje is the fans' pick for favorite fighter at this point. Justin Gaethje is so good, not only on the feet, he's got a good wrestling background, but he just never wants to use it because he wants to put a striking clinic on the feet for the fans. Justin Gaethje has some of the best, most fun fights we can ever imagine in these last couple. Let's look about the Dustin Poirier fight, the first and second time. The first one lasted 4 rounds where he eventually got TKO'd. And the second one, the round and a half that it lasted, was an amazing technical war. The Michael Chandler fight won Fight of the Year. The 4-minute absolute war with Charles Oliveira, which he ended up getting finished of. The absolute brutal domination of Tony Ferguson. And so many other fights. Even his first fight coming into the UFC versus Michael Johnson and Donald Cerrone, those fights too show that Justin Gaethje was always beloved by the fans and that he goes in there for war. Justin Gaethje is one of, if not the most exciting fighters in the UFC currently, and being that exciting will bring fans around you currently. When Justin Gaethje is on a UFC card, all the fans are screwing the main event and tuning into that fight because you all know that that fight is going to be the most violent fight on the card. Justin Gaethje at number 9 I think is completely valid, and I 100% love watching Justin Gaethje fight. At number 8, I have Dustin Poirier, and Dustin Poirier, we all know, is a fan favorite for all of his journey within the UFC. He's fought Conor McGregor 3 times. The first one he lost. The second fight was an absolute masterclass by Dustin Poirier. I know he probably lost that first round, but in that second round, he found the range, he got comfortable, and he was nailing Conor with those leg kicks, and hit Conor with one of the craziest right hooks we've ever seen. Daniel Cormier and Paul Felder were screaming. Everyone was absolutely stunned with the result of that fight. But Dustin Poirier now is one of the biggest stars in the UFC organization. He just got a title shot after coming off a loss and a win against Islam Makhachev because the fans understand that his legacy is something crazy, and his star power within the UFC organization is also insane. The other thing that everyone loves about Dustin Poirier, just like Justin Gaethje, he goes in there for an absolute war. The only fights I got to talk about: Michael Chandler, Benoit Saint Denis, Islam Makhachev, Charles Oliveira, Conor McGregor the first time, Khabib. All these fights that Dustin Poirier has been in are absolute bloodbaths to watch. And that is why I have Dustin Poirier at number 8 on the UFC biggest stars in the organization currently list. At number 7, I have Sean O'Malley. And Sean O'Malley's hype comes from both, yes, his fighting style, but also his persona out of the UFC octagon. Sean O'Malley is one of the most interesting stars in the UFC organization currently, and truly, he is an amazing fighter to back all of that up. The Aljamain Sterling knockout was something absolutely insane to watch, considering that he said that he had, I think, a muscle strain in his chest or in his side, and he was just waiting for Aljo to come in there, and he needed one shot to do it, and that one right counter put Aljo down, and he beat him to death with 20 unanswered strikes. Sean O'Malley is such a special talent, and if he would be able to fully solidify his grappling game and his takedown defense, that would make him such a deadly fighter. But you all know Sean O'Malley is one of the most accurate pinpoint strikers in the UFC organization. Look at his fight with Chito Vera, where he went in there and absolutely dismantled Chito Vera in a fashion that no one thought he could do. It was something that, yes, you all thought he could possibly win that fight, possibly even by 50-45, but to do it in that fashion to where every single round was almost a 10-8 is absolutely insane to me. Sean O'Malley's ranking at number 7 is 100% justified on this list for me currently. At number 6, we have Charlie Olives, or Charles Oliveira, and Charles Oliveira is a fan favorite. You look at UFC 300, and everyone was there to watch Charles Oliveira. He is such an amazing fighter and such a good personality. And he goes in there, and you know his fight's not going to last that long. The fact that his fight with Arman Sarukian went all 3 rounds and went the distance was an absolute shocker to me. I thought that was going to be a first-round finish. Now, Charles Oliveira's grappling, his striking, he is so well-rounded in every single category, and he just is one of the most aggressive fighters within the UFC organization. He always goes forward. He always tries to put on a show for the fans. And Charles Oliveira is one of, if not the funniest people in the UFC organization. Just the way he walks, the way he talks, everything he does, he is just so beloved by every single fan in the UFC. And his title reign was one of the most fun stints in the UFC organization, where he beat Dustin Poirier, he beat Michael Chandler, he beat Justin Gaethje, and every single one of those fights was a war coming out. And even if you look at his fight with Islam and you look at his fight with Beneil Dariush, those were amazing fights too. But Charles Oliveira is one of the most fun fighters within the UFC organization, and all the fans absolutely adore him, and that's why I rank Charles Oliveira at number 6 on this list. At number 5 on the list, I have Max Holloway, and this list is somewhat of what have you done for me lately, but I think the UFC fans and organization can understand that Max Holloway now, after that UFC 300 knockout, is one of the biggest stars the UFC has ever seen. You know, if that was on a card, if that fighter was against anyone else other than Justin Gaethje, and on a card anyone else other than UFC 300, this would not be validated. But Max Holloway took all of his dignity, all of his trust, and risked it all on a swing down in the final 10 seconds of that fight on the biggest card ever in UFC history. And he got the craziest knockout, and maybe one of, if not the best knockouts in UFC history, on Justin Gaethje in that fight. Now, Max Holloway is also a very credentialed champion, where he's fought the likes of Alexander Volkanovski 3 times, Yair Rodriguez, Brian Ortega, Jose Aldo twice. And Max Holloway is just an absolute monster of a fighter. And I truly think that he is one of the biggest stars in the UFC organization right now. He's got so much potential to be even a bigger star if he fights someone like Conor McGregor. Can you only imagine how big Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway would be? But Max Holloway is so justified at the number 5 spot, especially after that UFC 300 knockout. And I love to watch Max Holloway fight so much. At number 4, I have Islam Makhachev, and Islam Makhachev is one of, if not the best fighters in the UFC organization. He is my pound-for-pound number 1 fighter, along with a lot of other people's. Islam is so good on the ground. He is such a good striker, but he's also a funny character outside of the UFC octagon. I look at after he hit that Dustin Poirier with that darts, he was joking that he said that he would either knock Dustin out or make him go to sleep, or submit Dustin or make him go to sleep. And he did both. He submitted him, and after Dustin Poirier tapped, he went to sleep. But Islam is such a funny character, and he's such a good guy that I think that the fans are starting to come around and enjoy his game. And that's paired with being the best fighter in the UFC organization. Islam Makhachev is a fighter to always watch and get a good fight out of. You look at that Dustin Poirier fight was an absolute war. He absolutely demolished Alexander Volkanovski in that second fight. And I do think he beat Alexander Volkanovski in that first fight, which was an absolute clash. Knocked down Charles Oliveira and went to the submission and got the arm triangle. Islam Makhachev is justifiably one of the best stars in the UFC organization currently, and I love watching Islam Makhachev fight. At number 3, we have Poatan Alex Pereira, and I was debating on putting Alex Pereira at number 2, but I wanted to put him at 3 just to be conservative. But Alex Pereira is an absolute mean guy. He stepped in on 14 days notice to absolutely knock out Yuri Prochazka into the shadow realm at UFC 303. And what else did he do? He fought at UFC 300 and said, I'm going to fight Jamal Hill and then knock him into the Shadow Realm as well. Alex Pereira is one of the best knockout artists the UFC has ever seen, and he's the funniest persona. The way he doesn't speak any English and he kind of just grunts at everything, it makes everyone giggle and laugh. But Alex Pereira is one of the highest IQ fighters in the UFC organization right now. You all love watching his leg kicks, his head kicks, every little thing he does, and he's got some of the greatest knockouts in the UFC. You look at the Sean Strickland knockout, the Nikolaitis knockout in his debut with the flying knee, the Israel Adesanya TKO, the Yuri Prohaska TKOs, and the Jamal Hill TKO, which is his signature point at him. Alex Pereira is one of the most savage people in the UFC organization. He was talking about returning as quickly as UFC 305 after defending his belt at UFC 303. And Alex Pereira is loved by the fans because of his activity and his just cheerfulness outside the octagon. And when he steps in, it's absolute business going into that octagon. Alex Pereira is 100% the number 3 biggest fighter in the UFC, or biggest star in the UFC organization currently. At number 2, I got Jon Jones. We all know Jon Jones' legacy being the GOAT of the UFC organization. He's got some crazy number of title defenses. He beats the likes of Daniel Cormier, Alexander Gustafsson, Rampage Jackson, or Rumble Johnson, and Rampage Jackson, my fault. And he's beat some of those people, and he just went up to fight Ciryl Gane at heavyweight. Everyone tunes in when Jon Jones fights. Everyone loves seeing Johnny Bones get in the octagon and submit someone, throw some flying knees, spinning elbows. And Jon Jones is one of the best trash talkers in the UFC currently. And you all know that Jon Jones' legacy is helping him with that spot, and it's 100% justifiably so. Jon Jones has one of the best legacies in the UFC, like I hinted on earlier. And Jon Jones is still one of the most watched and beloved fighters now. The amount of Jon Jones support that there is absolutely insane, and I think that it's 100% viable to put him at the number 2 slot. The number 1 biggest star within the UFC organization should come to no surprise for anyone, and that is Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is one of the biggest stars in the UFC organization, especially on his come up. You look at the Jose Aldo knockout, the Eddie Alvarez knockout, the Khabib fight, the Donald Cerrone fight, the Dustin Poirier fights. He is one of the biggest stars in the UFC organization right now, and everyone wants to watch him fight. He was just about to return against Michael Chandler, and that pay-per-view did 20 million buys before the fight even started, and that was like a month out, and that's what Dana White said. If that is true, that is so many. That would have easily been number 1 most, and that would have been a month out from the fight to watch the Conor McGregor return. Conor McGregor is someone that everyone loves to see because of his aura. Everything he brings, every little thing he does in the UFC is absolutely stupendous. He's an amazing trash talker. He's got one of the flashiest styles. He's a funny dude from Ireland. He's got every little thing that a UFC star could possess. That is why Conor McGregor is number 1 on my list of the biggest stars in the UFC currently. He might not even be as active, but that less amount of activity just brings so much more attention to when he steps in the octagon. Like I said, Conor McGregor is easily number 1. Thank you guys so much for watching my episode of UFC Rankings, biggest stars in the UFC currently. If you agree with my list, if you would disagree with my list, go leave a comment down below telling me what you think is right and what you think is wrong. I always love to hear you guys' opinions, and I try to respond to as many comments as possible. If you enjoyed the video, please go down and leave a like and subscribe. That is the greatest way to show support for my channel. 99% of viewers who watch aren't subscribed, so if you, it would be amazing if you guys could go down and hit that subscribe button. If you guys don't want to miss any videos or shorts or any news coming up, always stay tuned into my channel. I will bring you guys the news as fastest as possible, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys later.